Once upon a time on a farm far away, there lived a very unusual cat. Her name was Mimi, and she wasn't like the other cats who chased mice in the barn or dozed off in sunny spots. No, Mimi wasn't interested in those things at all. Every night when the moon hung like a silver disc in the dark sky, Mimi would sit by the window and stare at it, dreaming of leaping up and walking on the moon. "Oh, how I wish I could jump that high," she'd sigh. "Imagine the feel of moon dust under my paws." Her friends, Tom, a grumpy black cat with a torn ear, and Luna, a sweet Siamese kitten, thought Mimi was crazy. "The moon is for dreamers, Mimi, not for hunters," Tom would say, sharpening his claws on the old wooden post. Luna, kinder than Tom, would just shake her head and flick her tail. "It's too far, Mimi, and what would you eat up there, moon cheese mice?" But no one could understand why Mimi spent hours gazing at the moon each night. It wasn't until old Mr. Pedro, who owned a farm and the cats, started reading a science fiction book aloud every night that they learned the reason behind her obsession. Every night before bed, Mr. Pedro would read exciting tales of brave adventurers traveling to distant planets and stars. Mimi would listen intently, her eyes shining with excitement. She wanted to have an adventure too. She wanted to explore the world beyond the farm, beyond the hills and the river, even beyond the moon. So Mimi decided to build a spaceship and take a journey into the unknown. Her first attempt was a complete disaster. One sunny afternoon, she jumped into a laundry basket, thinking the wind would carry her away. Mr. Pedro had tied the basket with a sheet, intending to hang it on the clothesline, but instead of floating away like Mimi had hoped, the basket simply rolled over and over until it bumped against a rose bush. Undeterred, Mimi started gathering materials for a new spaceship. She collected empty sardine cans, which she planned to use as thrusters, and an old wooden barrel that looked just like a rocket to her. For the dome, she found a large glass bowl that Mr. Pedro used for his salads. Secretly in the hayloft of the barn, Mimi and her new friends, a family of mice, worked tirelessly. They gnawed on wood and string, helping Mimi fasten the materials together. Every so often, Luna peeked in curiously, while Tom just shook his head and kept saying, "What a fool! What a fool!" But his voice held a hint of excitement, and sometimes he even lent a paw to help. On the night of the launch, the moon hung like a giant pearl in the night sky. Mimi, wearing a small helmet made from a coconut, stood in front of her creation. The mice, her ground crew, scurried around her, squeaking with anticipation. With a meow of determination, Mimi turned on the launch system, an ingenious contraption consisting of 2 planks of wood and a ramp. Then with a mighty leap, she sent the barrel flying out of the barn. And then nothing happened. Instead of soaring into the sky, the spaceship crashed straight into the garden fence. To everyone's surprise, the glass ball remained intact, but Mimi was tangled up in a patch of sunflowers. She could hear Tom and Luna laughing, but their laughter was filled with admiration, not mockery. Mr. Pedro, woken up by the commotion, came rushing out to see what had happened. He gently untangled Mimi from the sunflowers and removed the bowl from her head. Looking at her, covered in dirt but unharmed, he couldn't help but chuckle. "Oh, Mimi," he said, scratching her behind the ears. "You and your wild ideas." As the sun began to rise, painting the sky in hues of pink and orange, Mimi walked back into the barn with her friends. She might not have reached the moon, but the thrill of the adventure, the feeling of doing something impossible, made her heart soar. Maybe tomorrow she'd build a submarine and explore the ocean, she thought. As long as there were mysteries to unravel, Mimi was happy.